Uncovering the Vampire's Trail. Eva's mind raced as she and Vlad pored over the ancient tome in the dimly lit library, the cryptic passages describing the vampire lord's reign and the legends surrounding his powers had unleashed a torrent of questions that demanded answers. According to this text, the vampire lord possessed extraordinary abilities, the power to manipulate the elements, commune with the dead, and even control the minds of his subjects, Vlad murmured, his brow furrowed in concentration. If these accounts are to be believed, we're dealing with a truly formidable adversary. Eva nodded, her fingers tracing the faded ink on the weathered pages. And yet, the villagers seem to have lived under his shadow for generations. There must be more to the story, clues that could help us understand his motives and uncover his current whereabouts. Vlad leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. The village elders may know more about the history of this legend. Their memories could be the key to unlocking the truth, but convincing them to share such closely guarded secrets will be no easy task. Then we'll have to try, Eva said, her voice steady despite the growing sense of unease. If this vampire lord truly poses a threat to the village and the surrounding region, we can't afford to let our doubts or the villagers' fear hold us back. Vlad studied her for a moment, the corners of his mouth tugging upward in a faint, wry smile. You're right. Caution has its place, but sometimes the path forward requires us to confront our darkest fears head-on. The two of them made their way through the village, the thick fog that had settled over the landscape adding to the eerie atmosphere. As they approached the town square, Eva couldn't help but notice the wary glances and hushed whispers that followed their footsteps. They're afraid, she murmured to Vlad, and with good reason, it seems. The vampire legend has cast a long shadow over this place. Vlad nodded solemnly. The elders have lived with the burden of this knowledge for decades, if not centuries. Convincing them to share it won't be easy, but we have to try. They reached the doorstep of a weathered two-story home at the edge of the square, its timbers creaking in the gentle breeze. Vlad took a deep breath and knocked firmly on the door, his knuckles echoing through the stillness. After a moment, the door swung open, revealing a stern-faced woman with a shock of gray hair. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the sight of the two outsiders standing on her doorstep. Vlad, she acknowledged, her voice gruff. I thought you'd have the good sense to stay out of these old legends. Vlad offered a placating gesture. Forgive me, Ilona, but the situation has grown more urgent than I could have imagined. This young woman, Eva, has uncovered an ancient tome that describes the vampire lord's reign. We need to understand the truth behind the legend if we're to have any hope of stopping his return. Ilona's expression darkened, and for a moment, Eva thought the woman might slam the door in their faces. But then, with a resigned sigh, she stepped aside, beckoning them to enter. Come in then, she said, her voice weighted with a lifetime of worry. I suppose it's time the truth came to light, no matter how much we might wish to keep it buried. As they stepped over the threshold, Eva felt a palpable shift in the air, as if the very walls of the house were saturated with the weight of the village's forgotten history. She exchanged a glance with Vlad, their determination tempered by a growing sense of trepidation. Whatever secrets Ilona and the other elders held, they were about to uncover a truth that would test the limits of their courage and their understanding of the world.